Comes on. Call to order Board of Zoning Appeals for August 26th, 2024. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 12th meeting.
Chairman, I recommend we approve the minutes from August 12th, 2024.
Second. Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Milburn. All in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Any special request continuances? The agenda says none, but I understand we do have a request.
Good evening. Donna Smithers with North Point Engineering and Surveying. I think the past several meetings, you've seen my associate Martin Spees here for this project. He had to go to the concert tonight, so I'm taking his place. So I think it's Pearl Jam.
Yes.
Like that. So this is for BZA 2024-22, the developmental standard variance. Sorry, for South Park. This is still ongoing with the parking agreement with the city attorney's office and our client's attorney. Actually, it's the seller's attorney. So the last I heard from them was a week and a half ago. I checked in again this week. They had filed some paperwork back a week and a half ago with the city attorneys. Still waiting for some answers on that. So I'd like to request a continuance and do it again for a month till September 23rd. Hopefully by then, I mean, I was hopeful we'd have an answer by now, but I'm hopeful by the 23rd that we'll be able to either say, ask for this variance, or we'll be going through a different process on this project. It's just totally on hold right now.
Okay.
Until this is resolved.
How do we look on the 23rd?
We should be good for the 23rd.
Will they need to renotice and all that, or do we need to do another?
Nope, as long as it's stated at the meeting that the hearing date that we're going to, they do not need to renotice. So it's up to you if you feel like it'd be necessary to renotice, but as long as you feel like everyone here that was interested in attending for it knows, you do not need to renotice.
Okay. Motion on moving this to September 23rd. Motion by Mr. Mall, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will try it again on the 23rd.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Okay. Any other special requests or continuances? Moving on, we'll move to findings of fact. BZA 2024-026 was development standards variance by petitioner Gary Potts for Madison Apartments at 523 South Madison Avenue.
Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-026.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Mall. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-027. This is development standards variance for 1148 Easy Street, which was lot 6. I assume we have to do each independently. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision, final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-027.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-028, which is 1162 Easy Street, lot 7.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted to the record as our final decision, final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-028.
Motion by Mr. Mole, second by Mr. Milburn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-029, which is for 1188 Easy Street, lot 8.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BCA 2024-029.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-030, 1153 Easy Street, Lot 9.
In consideration of the statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-030.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milburn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-031, which is 1117 Easy Street, Lot 10.
In consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision, final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-031.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. Milburn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And now BZA 2024-032, which is development standard variance for Crew Car Wash, southeast corner of US 31 and Worsville Road.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-032.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. The only old business we had was continued. So any old business from the floor? Moving on, we'll move to new business. First up is BZA 2024-033. This is a development standard variance for 916 East Main Street. Petitioner is Chris Tompkins on behalf of Onstage Live. They are seeking a building sign, multiple use ground sign to allow changeable copy on a multiple use ground sign. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty for perjury testimony you're about to give the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Are all the notices and receipts in order?
Everything is in order and in our files.
And adopt the city agreement with comprehensive plan and
Name and address for the record.
My name is Christopher Tompkins, and my home address, and actually our nonprofit's address is 751 Lindenwood Drive. The address of the business is at 916 East Main Street in Worcester Road Plaza.
Okay, and then there should be a sheet there to your left that will get your name and address so that we can get it spelled correctly in the documentation when you get a chance.
While he is filling that out too, I would just like to point out in our staff report, we do have an H in his name. In his last name, that H does not exist, so our apologies.
It happens all the time. I get Tompkins, Thompson, everything but Tompkins.
Right. I feel your pain, so. All right, tell us why you're here, Mr. Tompkins.
So in brief, which I put in our outline, is that the monument sign for Vista Run Plaza has been there for over 50 years. When we initially were looking at that, because of the fact that the owner, which is Cypress Group, which is Army Jeep Luthra, is really trying to change up the plaza. If you remember, some of you lived here for a long time, prior to COVID, that was the Catered Cabaret. Mr. Luthra reached back out to myself and some of my board of directors for the nonprofits. We're now a nonprofit theater company, performing arts here, based in Johnson County, Greenwood. So he asked if we would come back and bring shows back to the venue again. So we were supposed to go to Greenwood Park Mall, and there were many upsides to that, but we did choose to go back because it's double the square footage, and we had already done so much infrastructure from before. So we were like, okay, so we just spent another $200,000 in renovating again to bring it all the way up to everything. Went through that process. On the signage, we all know, and let's just be honest, and Army Jeeps were too, that center, unlike Greenwood Park Mall, so the strips, does not attract a diverse clientele currently because of the current tenant mix. Mr. Luthra is working dynamically to change that. He spent almost $100,000 so far this year as part of our agreement to start changing the center, including landscaping, roof work, plumbing work, and again, working to diversify the tenant mix. On the signage up front, because we don't have the walk by traffic, when we submitted initially, we were looking to actually add on to the bottom of the monument sign an area I spoke to Alyssa and the planning department, which were wonderful to work with. And they said, that's just not gonna fly. We don't think that's gonna fly. So I do remember specifically Alyssa stating to me that if we were able to get the bottom 2 stationary panels, that would probably be approved. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember her saying that we needed to apply for variance, because I never thought we'd get the bottom 2 panels. I spoke to Mr. on Main Street, not on Emerson. So I spoke to Mr. Luthra, and I said, Harmajeet, here's our situation. He said, let me see what I can do. So he worked on it. He was actually able to get 2 of the tenants to agree to go to smaller signage and let us have those bottom 2. So now we have on-stage live and then 2 now that have changeable letters. And then to put those in at our expense and also paying for the other tenants to move their signs and pay for those signs. So Thomas Hopkins with Sign Solutions did that. They do a lot of work here in Johnson County. They're very reputable. Unbeknownst to us, again, sincerely, I didn't realize we could not do that on the bottom 2 because we thought, okay, cool. We're just replacing the panels. Let's get it done. It has made a difference in our business. It has made a difference in people walking in to see that we're actually open and that we're actually doing shows. Not gonna lie, the cultural arts on the south side, which we own, is void. I mean, there's nothing down here for live professional theater. We also have a performing arts academy. We also have a senior program. We do matinees for seniors. Our shows are truly quality products. As a matter of fact, one we're looking to take to Broadway. We're in the process of negotiating with Barry Manilow. So my point of this is, we didn't do it deliberately to break the rules. And trust me, for $5,000, I don't have personally right now, I spent on my credit card to do it. We're just asking for a variance, at least for the term of our lease, which is another 2.5 years. We have an automatic, we have the right to renew for another term for 3 years at the end of our lease. And frankly, with all of you, our goal is to build a 500-seat performing arts theater here in Johnson County, in Greenwood. That is our ultimate goal. And we actually have a building fund set up as Everwise, and we've got our gaming license for charity commissions, and so we're just trying to bring arts to the south side.
Okay. Do you have your answers to statutory criteria with you that you submitted?
Yes, I do.
We need to get those on the record, so we're gonna read through those if you will.
Okay.
Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The monument sign on the plaza has been in place for approximately 50 years since the plaza was constructed. The bottom larger 2 storefront signs will be used for the purpose of state within. It does not change or modify the physical monument from its current state.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
Arby's has a changeable sign. Arby's actually is literally at the plaza entrance, and they've got a changeable sign, as does Wendy's, which is only a half block away on the other side of Emerson on Main Street that'd be at the northeast side. That's relatively a new Wendy's, so that got approved. Also, Crew has from Vista Grand Plaza. So Arby's, which Wendy's located at half block, opened approximately a year ago. The strip center directly across the street has electronic signage used to promote the center's businesses and special offers and promotions available less strictly to the Main Street Grill.
Okay, and number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The center's current tenant mix does not attract a more diversified customer base. Ownership is committed to diversifying the tenant mix, including La Croissant, Original Chicago's Pizza, and onstage live entertainment. Plaza ownership has demonstrated their desire to upgrade the strip center, including substantial investment in landscaping, costly repair of monument signs, and are about to begin parking lot repairs and resurfacing. Location was selected based on attracting consumers from the greater Indy metro area and with ample parking. Onstage Live Entertainment's goal is to build a standalone PAC here in Greenwood. PAC is Performing Arts Center. The request to approve the variance is desperately needed to help us inform and drive demand. We already experienced over 100 new walk-in, a day of show since the installation, and we didn't understand that this required variance.
Okay, and number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazardous air navigation. Anything else you'd like to add before I see if anyone else has anything they want to add or turn it over to staff?
I would just ask that you please support us, and if we need to change it back when we move, then we'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here online wishing to speak to this docket? Seeing none, staff comments?
Thank you. We read our staff report. We are not in favor of this. Our concern with a multi-tenant sign is that the purpose of this from the road is to see what tenants are in the building. Additional changeable copy signs that contain messages, a little tougher to read, especially on the sign that's busy as a multi-tenant sign. I know Alyssa did offer that a changeable copy sign was permitted on their marquee, which essentially be on the front of their tenant space. That would have been permitted. I worried that, and I know we have some pre-existing ones that are slowly being phased out, but I feel that allowing this could continue to a number of messages on signs and just causing public safety hazards. Drivers are already bad enough, we don't need to encourage them to do worse.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I think he's had conversations with me as well. It's been something that staff has been consistent on. I don't believe he was doing it to be intentionally breaking the law, but it was a consistent staff message from myself as well, that this would not be permitted here. We did give them viable options to have that on the building. And just to read from the Unified Development Ordinance, ground signs for multi-use properties shall be considered as having a combination of business identification sections, with each section identifying one business visually separated from others by cabinet frame or support structures. So it does clarify that it is really for a business identification, and it is already a very large sign for the old town or for the downtown area. That's all.
Mr. Tompkins, any response to that?
Yeah, two things if I may. One is that if you're driving down the street, the way that signage is done, which I believe you've all got a copy of that, in the back of that. It was deliberately put on the bottom, so it doesn't distract from the other signage. Two, we only change that signage out literally once a month, because we have shows once a month. So we keep it up to there are very nice sized letters. We've not had anybody, to my knowledge, drive by it, and up there, slow down until they're gonna have crashes. The other thing is that we looked at setting something to the frontage of our building, which was one option that we had, but you still can't, it would be so small from the street, you'd never be able to see it. So that's why, and again, I do remember so specifically that when I spoke with Alyssa, she talked about the bottom two. That's why we went ahead and moved forward with that part of it. So again, didn't mean to break the rule there on that, truly. But I am asking, because it was over $5,000 we invested in this, and we are just trying to bring something to the community. We'll take it back down, we'll put it back to regular whenever we move out. We're just trying to get through the next couple of years, and it's not been easy so far. Not because of you all, just in general. It's just...
I'll close it. Oh, go ahead.
Just one last clarification. They can't use multiple panels on that sign. I think they're allowed up to 100 square feet. The concern we have, the issue we have is the changeable copy part of it. So they could use those bottom two panels, which is what I believe Alyssa told them that they could do. It just can't be changeable copy.
I have to comment, she did specifically state that she thought we could get the bottom two panels approved with changeable letters. I do know that for a fact and from our conversation. That was a telephone conversation I did with Alyssa. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, we'll leave it as a disagreement. I don't think that she would agree with that statement. And I know I did have a follow-up conversation after you had spoken with Alyssa. It was transferred to my office, but we can we're not going to solve. I believe you didn't do this intentionally, but I think that there's a misunderstanding.
And to put us stagnant, had we gotten the bottom two support on stage live and then the bottom two, it wouldn't have made any sense for us to do any other signage other than what we're doing because we don't have stagnant shows. So that's why we.
Close the public hearing. Mr. Mole? And sir, you may want to stay up there because we may have questions for you. The board may have comments and questions here.
Come back to me, I had it.
Mr. Milburn?
What is the size of the sign, each sign?
The letters on the signage
Not the
themselves.
letters, the size of the sign, the panel itself.
They're 120 by 24. So there's 120 by 24 and then 124 by 24. So the letters are nice, good size.
Right, so you're talking 10 feet long, 120 inches, is that right?
Yeah. And 2 feet tall.
And 2 feet tall. What would be the possibility of putting a digital sign in one of those? And that way you wouldn't have to actually take the sign out and move it.
The digital sign, in all honesty, would run us about $25,000 to $35,000. And since we are still upside down right now by about $100,000, we just don't have it. I mean, to do that. Also, this is just my personal opinion. Digital signage is nice, but I think it's much busier than it is having a stationary sign because I think that to me is a distraction versus a stagnant sign. That's just, and I'm a theater person, but.
And I will just comment briefly, we can discuss and ask questions. The job is not to redesign or create a compromise. It is to analyze whether or not you feel like it meets the criteria that we have before us.
Mr. Mole?
Okay, I have my question. You guys had mentioned the driving safety thing. Have we had like any reports done with in that area for any accidents with the busy signs in general? Right there, I'm just curious.
No, there's nothing specific as to this one. So I don't want to say that there have been, but there's been a number of studies in the past on changeable copy signs, message signs, and just with the number of things happening right there, it's at its limit of what the driver can reasonably take in.
Mr. Milburn, any additional?
No.
Mr. King?
No, I mean, I'll admit, I don't see it as busy because I've probably driven past it and not noticed that it is changeable copy, and I've been to 2 tenants and they've not even noticed, so I guess I see us more having an issue with saying this is, strict application isn't a practical difficulty, because I mean, to me, there's 7 other businesses that I see signs for, and I haven't noticed it, so.
You say it is or is not?
I don't see I see where the strict application is a problem. I mean, just to me.
Yeah.
It's not causing any issues for the public. I'm glad some people are noticing it going in, but I don't see where it's causing any concerns. I would have more concerns if we were talking about a digital sign.
Ms. Spears?
Now, the picture that we have in the package, that's the way you want.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it is, but that's what you're wanting. I mean, I heard you say something about moving 2 other businesses, and I saw 2 open spaces. Are we moving 2 more businesses?
Oh, no. No, we actually.
This is the way it is.
Yeah, we
What you
actually
want.
paid, the people that were on there initially, we actually paid and they agreed to do smaller signage, so we paid for their signage.
So that's already incorporated in
Yes,
this. That's
yes,
what I was trying to make sure that there's nothing different that you're actually asking
No,
for versus
that's-
what is here.
That's what-
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I will agree, there's a lot on that, on the finding a sign in general. I will admit, originally, when I read this at home, I didn't catch, and I looked at the picture and still didn't catch that it was an electronic sign, which the electronic sign actually concerned me because it's constantly flashing, moving, and drawing more attention. The fact that it is stationary and it's month to month, and you could have second, third, you could own second, third sign with stationary verbiage at a time. I'm not sure I see much difference between something being there for a month and being there permanently. Sign itself is just busy in general. I do, and I do agree that trying to put something back in the corner, because you guys are back in the corner, right, of that strip, way away from the road, would not be doable or help with attracting traffic. It's a little, I mean, I do see, to your point, where there is a practical difficulty. I also see staff's point that we're trying to not create even more distraction, but the fact that it's stationary for a month is helpful. I guess I would recommend that that be a requirement, that it does not change more than that, and also that it only run with this tenant. If someone were to make that request to approve, I should. So I see both sides of this. So I guess any other questions or comments, Commissioner Tompkins? Not, I will take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I will take the motion on the docket itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the following two conditions. I'll be happy to share my paper. Make it easy.
Okay.
One, the variance shall only run with this tenant. Two, that the signed copy can only be changed once during a calendar month. I would like to explain the reason for that is since we have 27, 28, 30, and 31 day months, we can't fix it.
Number of days.
Number of days, because that could get messy, so. Okay, those are my two conditions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. King with the two conditions that the variance runs with the tenant, and number two, that the signed copy can only change once during a calendar month. Second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion to direct the corporation's counsel to draft with findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered statutory criteria, move that we direct the corporation's counsel office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance requested presented in the variance petition number BZA 2024-033. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as their final decision and final action regarding the petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Mole, second by Mr. King. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. We will take final action in a couple weeks. You're able to move forward at this point. Thank you.
We'll work with you just to finish the sign permit, and then once we get that complete, it should be in performance.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up is BZA 2024-034. This is for 1177 Curry Road. Petitioner is David Gilman, requesting relief from 3 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, to reduce the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. Number 2, to reduce the minimum required lot width from 75 feet to 50 feet. And number 3, to allow accessory structures in a front yard. All those wishing to present, please. And we'll have you be sworn in by our secretary.
Do you swear under penalty of perjury testimony you're about to give is true?
I did.
Are all the receipts and notices in order?
Yes, everything is in order and in our files.
From the petitioner. Happy. See if anyone can comprehensive plan, there's an ordinance. You guys have a share of this one.
And if you could also fill out that sheet with name and address. We take a quick look at what's just passed out. So I get my bearings with me over this. Okay. Once you're ready, name and address for the record.
Thank you. For the record, my name is David Gilman. My address is 211 South River Avenue, Suite H, Indianapolis, Indiana 46219. I represent Brittany and Joe Hubbard. They are the new owners of this property located at 1177 West Curie Road. I do have some overheads that actually match what you have in your hands, but I just wanted to make it convenient that you could see it either way.
Okay.
Next slide, or do I advance it here?
I think it's touchscreen, maybe you can touch on it. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so this property, there's an existing house that is marked on the overhead with the address close to Curry Road. Then there are 2 outbuildings, a metal framed building, and then a really old wooden barn. And my clients have purchased both of these properties, and they would like to build their new home in the back of the barns. These properties were subdivided in about 1983, from what I can understand. So the existing house sits on about an acre. The 2 barns sit on another parcel that consists of about 2 acres. The house has the frontage, but the house itself, when they split these properties, is about 5 feet from that middle lot line, or that common lot line. The ordinance requires 10 feet. The parcel that the 2 barns sit on only has 75 feet or 50 feet of frontage. And the ordinance would require for a home site in this zoning district to have 75 feet of frontage. So we've asked the board to consider 3 variances. One variance is to allow the house to stay where it is and accept the 5-foot setback as opposed to the 10-foot that would be required. The other is to allow us to have a building lot with only 50 feet of frontage when the ordinance and the zoning in this area would require 50 feet. The third variance that I've asked for is to keep the 2 buildings on the property and allow the owners to build behind those structures. The ordinance does not allow accessory structures to be built in front of the primary structure. So this is the view from Curie Road, the existing house. 5 feet from the edge of the house is the property line. You have the gravel drive going back to the metal barn. This is a better overview of the property. You see the house next to us has a beautiful home up front. a large metal building in the back, and then, I don't know, maybe a workout type structure, in the very, very back. Fitness center, not sure what it is, but it's gorgeous. So what we're looking to do is, this is a street view of it. Back in that large grass open area, my clients want to build their new home. So I want to show you what this main barn looks like. It's in really good condition. To rebuild this barn, I'm just estimating 150,000, maybe more. And we would like to keep it, and we're going to create this to make it an integral part of the property and to help address some of the concerns that the staff brought to my attention in the staff report. We will put a new skin around it, new paint, new stone, so that it matches the architect and the design of the new home we're gonna build, and I'll get to that in a minute. This is what the neighbor's barn looks like. So they did kind of the same thing. The home up front, if I go back, you see it's got a lot of the white color, the grays, and then it's got some white masonry along the bottom. So they did the same thing on the barn. That's exactly the design that we're trying to present to this board to help alleviate one of the staff concerns about it not having the right materials. And if it's going to be up front, my clients want that to be more of a showpiece than any deterrent. So this is a house they're proposing. This is called, what I call modern farmhouse. And so they would take that metal barn and they would make an application to the siding, wrap the stone base around the bottom of it to make it look like it was designed for that particular house when it was constructed. Here's another version of the house they'd like to build. They haven't yet selected it, but they just wanted to let the board know this country atmosphere, country setting is the theme they're looking for. And I apologize, both of them had prior commitments out of state and they couldn't be here with me tonight, and they wanted me to let you know that. So the other part, the other structure is this wonderful historic barn. And to our recollection, it's at least 100, maybe 125 years old. Again, they want to preserve this because it does represent a history of the agricultural use in this part of the county and in Greenwood. And you can see it's got a lot of neat features. I think that little appendage to the side is where they had their tools and they're working their skill to, take care of the horses or the equipment. It's got a lot of really neat features. So they want to take this structure and this structure, turn it into something that would resemble this to match their existing home, and that's what they're proposing to build. So all this being said, the staff graciously has recommended that our two findings meet the criteria of the ordinance. The public the hardship for the is it going to create a hardship for the public safety, morals, and general welfare of the community? The other one is it going to impact any of the uses of the surrounding properties? And if you see on this particular property or this overhead here, the buildings are already behind the house to the west. They're already behind the house to the east. And then if you go to this one, everything that abuts us over to our neighbors, those are all rear yards of a platted subdivision. So it really impacts nobody's visual view of our property or from the street. What you see from the street virtually won't change. Our house will be behind that existing house. One thing that if the board finds it necessary, that the staff would entertain it, we can even add more landscaping along our frontage just to help screen it. One thing we don't want to do is obviously set a precedent, but what we do want to do is tell you that this is unique. We have a piece of property that was given to us that has a beautiful historic structure on it. We certainly don't want to have to tear it down. We have a practical difficulty because it's not practical for us to relocate these structures. we can't build our house in front of these structures, there's just no room. So we're hoping that the board and the staff will understand that we think we do have a practical difficulty. And with that, I'd be happy to go through all my findings with the board.
Now, let's go ahead and do that. And I understand your answers are the same for all three. So if you would confirm that, then we'll go through them the one time.
What I did is I've handed you a set of findings, and I want to share this with both Gabe and Kevin. I apologize to these gentlemen. The stuff in red did not cover the barns. I only covered the barns in one of the findings, even though they agreed with two of the three. But I wanted to add and make my findings a little bit more clear on why I think all three of these variances meet all three practical difficulty tests.
Okay. So with that, I would ask that we read the new submitted findings as are on the record response tonight. And again, with this, it would apply to all three.
Yes.
Okay, so number
Yes.
one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The grant of the variance is primarily to remove an encumbrance from two parcels, a side yard and the road frontage. The outbuildings are in good condition and will provide a functional use for the purpose to the owners.
number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The adjacent properties are in platted subdivision with the rear yards facing the septic site. The site will have a new single-family residence constructed on a vacant parcel to add value to the area. The existing buildings have been on the site for many years and would not have a negative impact on the adjacent values if they were to remain.
number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The variance requests are to remove encumbrances for two existing parcels and to allow for the construction of a new single-family home on a vacant parcel. Without the variance grant, the existing residents in the vacant parcel will have zoning issues, making it difficult to sell or improve them in the future. The site will be developed to integrate the existing buildings so that they are functional and not out of character. The existing metal building will be improved with paint materials to match the new home design. The old barn is a symbolic to the historic agricultural history of this area, should be allowed to remain as it has for over 100 years. The new owners will preserve its existence since it would be too risky to try to relocate.
okay, and then number four, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard navigation. Okay, anything else you'd like to add before I get staff's comments or others' comments?
Just the conditions I offered, that the metal building will be sort of redesigned to match the house, and we could make that subject to our permit when we make application for the house. And we would be happy to answer questions that you or staff may have.
Before I go to staff, just make sure, is there anyone else either online or here that is here for this docket? Okay, staff comments.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I think Commissioner has covered most of where we stand on this issue, so I don't want to repeat everything. We are obviously concerned with having accessory structures in the front yard. We'd rather that not become a habit. If the board is to find in favor of the third variance, we do ask that you take the condition offered as part of that. Otherwise, I did want to pass on, I did give an email to staff this morning. I hesitate to call it a remonstrance because it's really not that strong. There's more, there's a couple questions which are either here or there on this one. There was a comment in which this is an adjacent property owner who's concerned that the two outbuildings do not appear to be in good condition as mentioned in the request. It is their opinion that a new residence be built in front of the two outbuildings and not behind them. And obviously we've heard testimony that the plan is to wrap one of those two buildings, so.
Okay. We have that in our possession, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, with the first two variances, we have a legal non-conforming lot where it's been divided in the past, and these have been two separate lots. And when you are bringing something up into modern times compliance, and they do want to build a home there, they will need to plat the property. When you plat the property, you will either need to be reading the setbacks or receive a variance. So that is why the timing of it, they're existing lots right now. That is why the timing of this request is now, because he would like to build the second lot on the parcel. So for the first two, you know, they're not changing anything about actually the lots right now. And we do feel like it would be impractical or impossible to either move the home or provide for more frontage. So with those two, we were favorable of the request. The third one, we, as mentioned, we were unfavorable. It does conflict with our overall design and aesthetics and the surrounding neighborhood. In his testimony, he did reference the neighbors quite a few times where their home is in front of their accessory structures. And even with the additional text in red, we are still unfavorable.
Any final response, Mr. Gilman?
Yeah, I just, there are three things that come to my mind when I think of practical difficulty. One, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner that's not permitted by the zoning code. I think what they're asking to do is reasonable. Keep these buildings, fix them up, make them look nice, build behind, they have plenty of land, they can meet all the setbacks. The other one, lot configuration impacts the buildable area of the site. And as the planning director just referenced, that is correct. The area to build on the second outlot is actually behind in the back with these structures. And one, keeping the structures, it's more of a hardship for them to tear down perfectly good structures or historic structures to meet the zoning code, more of it as an inconvenience. And they're not asking for you to consider an inconvenience, they're asking for you to consider this a hardship, a practical difficulty, should they have to tear down these two buildings, one being historic, one being in very good condition that they'd like to remodel and integrate into their new home design. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will close the public hearing and open up to the board. Mr. Mull?
The old barn there, how structurally sound is that thing? I mean, I know it's old, but I'm just like,
That's my concern.
because I've had great grandparents with old barns, those things. I mean, just looking at that one picture you showed, it looked like you could almost push it over.
No.
And that's how I was like,
I went in it. It has the old tongue and groove, virgin timber, native timber. It's very dry inside. And I think the main thing about the structures when they become structurally unsound is water, moisture, and rotten wood. I didn't notice that on the structure at all because they did keep the roof in decent condition. But the inside was dry, had the old tongue and groove, the poplar timber. But if it does look like it needs to have something reinforced, my clients would be willing to do that. They just don't want to have to tear it down if it can be saved.
so have you guys gotten like an inspector in there just to make sure it's? And then, other question I had for the other structure, are you gonna make it look like the proposed house? So,
Yeah, so it'll have some combination, like, see this, I don't know if it'll zoom in, but it has like a wainscot of stone around the base. They probably will put additional windows in it and paint it and maybe even put the roof on it to match the color scheme, materials, and of the new house that they're building, which is gonna be that modern farmhouse.
And then the other question I had, Amanda, is just, cause I saw you said mentioned existing roadway, that's just like a gravel, are you planning on paving, like actually putting some kind of paving structure out there? Just curious. Sorry. I was just curious
about
it's
the
just-
access to the
It
house.
just looks kind of rough, and I was just like,
In the staff report, there is a site plan we proposed. If we want to integrate it, where we'll take the drive to the new house right in between the old barn and the new barn, bend it around to build in the back, so they are on your way to the house, you have your storage barn. The other barn will probably, could be like a woodworking shop or something, just something very passive.
Mr. Milburn,
Nothing.
Mr. King?
No, I'm just kind of struggling to find the practical difficulty, kind of with staff on this right now. I mean, I hate tearing buildings down, but at the same time, these are accessory structures that be in front of a house. I don't know, I'm struggling to get there to find a way to approve it on my vote.
Mrs. Peters?
I guess I'm trying to make sure I've got this straight, that the owner of the existing house, 1177 West Curry, is the same owner as the property that we're talking about.
Yeah, properties under the same ownership, yeah.
If they had split the lot behind those two accessory buildings, would we be talking about having accessory buildings in front of the house because they are not part of that property? It's a question. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a similar question.
Are you asking if they would, split it horizontally?
Yeah, but they would split it perpendicular to the Curry, and those buildings would no longer be part of the property that they're wanting to put the house on.
Yes.
Since they're not accessory buildings to that property, would they be a problem?
It would be creating a landlocked parcel without any road frontage. If it were to, they would need some type of an access easement and.
But if they had an access easement, because you can get that with an agreement in writing.
You can, planning commission would be the ones that would approve
Right, but
someone
I'm still, the
having.
question is, if those buildings were separated on a different plot, and they built the house on the plot behind, is that a problem? We're still talking about outbuildings in front of the house because they're no longer part of that house.
If they are building a house behind the accessory structures,
Which are not on their property.
it's a violation. If it is just a house on its own property without any accessory structures, and we're getting very hypothetical here,
Yeah.
it would be just a house on a parcel. You don't have to follow compliance from your neighbor's accessory structures. It's for your property.
Okay.
If on your property you have an accessory structure, there's in the rear yard.
I'm just thinking about some of these other pockets of housing that we have where their accessory building, where this one house happens to be in front of somebody neighbor's house. And do we cause that a problem for the neighbor because they're no longer having full view of the street because this other accessory building belonging to their neighbor is in front of their house? I mean, I've seen the house pockets like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that you can find a situation with that. It is typical though that our accessory structures in residential zones are in the rear yard of the house. Sometimes they're allowed in the side yard if they're either like 10 or 15 feet back from the front line of the home. The intent would be that the primary structure of the home is what is facing the roadway.
Well, now you bring up another question. They turn the house so it faces not towards Curry Road. It's no longer in front of the house, is it?
The primary entrance that it's addressed off of should be facing and prominent for the street.
Or is that considered the front of the house if it's not facing the?
It wouldn't matter which way their
Okay,
front door
that's what I
is
need to
facing,
know.
it would still be on.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to figure out. Guess that's all I have to know.
Yeah. Torn on this one. because I've heard good evidence on both sides. I guess my question, so the split becomes down the middle vertically. The existing house, that's what the 5-foot setback is for, but that's temporary is what I'm hearing. Once they get the lots together, that 5-foot setback would no longer be 5 feet and that'll go away.
I think
Is
it's
that
still
right?
be-
It'll still be there.
It'll still be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
it was in the
they
draft.
replatted it causes it
I can
to
try to
be
share it.
too close.
Well, the fact that they did replat it.
Yeah, and now this becomes 5 instead of 10.
So, okay, so I guess that's my next question then. Once this is replatted and done, that old house is staying there. And it has all the land going behind it then. And then you've got the new lot with the accessory structures to the house. It won't be one common lot, it'll still be 2 lots and they could sell the lot with the old house?
I think that's the intention.
I did, if we replat it, it won't change the property lines at all.
Gotcha.
And just to answer your question, you brought up the next, we will face the house due east instead of facing Curie Road. Because we don't want to look at the water tower. I don't know if you saw that big water tower, that's literally in our front yard, so we'll face going the opposite, and that water tower will be in our backyard.
Well, one thing to note about the front, and again, we're not trying to redesign someone's site, but the primary front entrance to a residential dwelling structure shall not be located on the side or rear elevation. A front building elevation should have a prominent front entryway and door visible from the front line and at least 2 windows of no less than 8 square feet in size. And these are from our general design standards. So the orientation of the building, the front will have to be towards Curry.
Okay. So truly though, it's not like we're gonna have a house and then accessory structures and then another house. It's all contiguous. It's gonna be a separate lot. And then you have the buildings with the new house behind them as a singular property. That's what I was trying to.
Yeah, they are already separate properties. The home is on one property and the 2 accessory structures are on a
I see.
second property. That second property currently only has accessory structures, which is also non-conforming. They're asking to build the house behind them, so the house would then be in the rear of the 2 accessory structures.
What is preventing them from putting the new house in front of the accessory structures?
There's physically no room. The one house, the existing house, the first lot that's there, its property line goes almost to the accessory structures. So literally, if you wanted to get in front of the accessory structures, you would have a house about 20 feet
I
apart.
see, because the neighbor's house has that land up to the ground.
Yeah, the neighbors, they
Okay.
have that land in front of us, that's, we only have the 50 feet of road frontage.
Well, okay, so I do see that as a practical difficulty. I don't love the accessory structures in front of the house, however, there is quite a bit of bufferage, to your point, with the trees and the fact that they cannot be relocated does seem to be problematic, or at least not relocated easily. Yeah, intact. I do have concerns about the structure of the old barn and all for historical buildings, but I would like to see that it's inspected by someone, to your point, as subject to inspection if someone is.
We would agree to that self-imposed condition. We would not be, we want it safe too. I imagine they're gonna have to insure it anyway, so.
And while I also do not want to start a trend of accessory structure in the front yard, I do think this is a little bit unique in the, as far back as they are set with the bufferage and the size of the lots. And particularly since the neighbor's yard is actually mostly the front yard there. Okay. I think that's all. Any further questions from anyone before? Do we have a question or comment, or are we good? We're good. Okay, then I will take a motion to admit all the evidence of the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators on all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. We'll take a motion on the docket itself for request number 1 to reduce the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet.
Mr. President, I move that we approve this request. I don't have any conditions for this because
Motion by Mr. King to approve with no conditions. Second by Mr. Peters. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Request number 2 to reduce the minimum required lot width from 75 feet to 50 feet.
I move that we approve this request with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0 with no conditions. Request number 3 to allow accessory structures in a front yard.
Chairman, I move that we deny this request.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Moll to deny, a second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 3-2. Thank you. I'll take a motion to direct Corporations Council draft written findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporations Council Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision in the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2024-034. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as their final decision, final action regarding the petition at next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I will note, just a reminder, when there's a denial, you are affirmative if you voted for the denial, and you are negative if you voted against the denial. So that's my fault. It's always tricky. Yeah. You voted. Then you're affirmative. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements? No announcements? Motion for adjournment? So moved. We are adjourned.